Today I want to talk about why starting is actually easier. I know most common psychology says starting is the hardest part. Getting going is the hardest part. Right? And getting the activation energy to start can oftentimes feel like the biggest struggle. But there's one little shift you can make to make starting the easy part. And that is simply accepting that new is imperfect. Now, with that, there's other aspects that go into it. Right? New is imperfect. So what does that mean? That means that when you start, you're expected to not be perfect at it. I know some of us have a real struggle with that, and that actually just makes it harder, and that's why we don't want to do something, because we're like, I don't like doing things I'm not good at. Right. Well, obviously, we all know how do you get good at something. But there's another side of it that makes starting easier. And that's that your failures are bigger. Right now I'm doing something called the Great Cycle Challenge. I do it every September. It's a fundraiser for Children's Cancer Research Fund. I love participating. And I have a bike that I'm doing it on, and it's this little folding bike. Because why not make it a little harder on myself, right? Still a lot easier than it is having cancer. But something I noticed when I started riding, and I like to start a little aggressive. So my first ride was 50 miles, and I've been doing 25 miles every day since then for the past couple days. But I noticed I was having an issue with my bike. My handlebars kept becoming offset. And I didn't understand why. I was like, I would try to reset them, they'd keep doing it, try to reset them, they'd keep doing it. Well, a couple things, some of those were easy fixes, right? Like what it actually was is I need to readjust the handlebar bracket, the way the collar connected, to line it up. But then I noticed there's a little bit of play in the extension. Because if you have a folding bike, if you don't know, the handlebars raise up and drop all the way down so they can fold down lower. Seat does, bike folds in half, all kinds of stuff. It's pretty cool. But what was happening is because I was riding so far and my handlebars kept shifting. And I mean, not shifting that much, but shifting a little. My shoulder, I started having shoulder pain. Because I had one arm that was constantly being pulled back a little bit. My body was offset on the bike. Yeah. And I'm lucky that it's a bike because it's something physical, right? And when it's something physical, it's easy to notice when things are out of alignment. Like I could see my handlebars weren't in line with the rest of the frame or the tire. But I couldn't quite figure out, it took some time to figure out what was going on, right? It took a little bit of time to understand why it kept happening. I try one thing, I adjust, try another thing, I adjust, try another thing, I adjust. But that's why it's actually easier, because it's obvious things, right? There's something obvious, it's hard to ride, or it's hard, I'm noticing this, but it's something obvious, it's something physical. But even if not, when you first start doing something, a lot of our alignments are obvious, they're bigger. I've only started this ride, I started riding 5 days ago. So it took me a couple days to figure out what was going on with my handlebars. I finally figured it out, and I made the adjustments I needed, and now arguably my bike's good to go. Right? Big things accomplished. And when we start any new thing, we get to apply that same principle. We can simply look at what didn't work, what didn't feel right, what didn't go the way we wanted to, and often they're big things. And if you recognize that that's normal, then it can stop being intimidating. Sure, something's going to feel off. Something's not going to feel the way it normally does. But it shouldn't, because you don't normally do it. You don't have the deeper knowledge of it. And again, that's why a lot of people will say starting is the hardest part, because you're working through those issues. But the hardest part of starting is always mental, right? And when we don't want to start, it's not a matter of not being perfect, like not being perfect in the sense that we expect to be perfect, but more so in the frame that we want to be perfect without any reasonability or reasonable expectation that we should be, right? There's nothing that says we should be great at something we've never done. But that is often the biggest thing that stops us. So when you're trying to move forward, when you're trying to start, when you're looking at something new, that's why it helps that learner, that growth mindset that's so important. Because when we develop that and we recognize that things are going to feel wrong, things are going to feel off, and there's going to be a little bit of growing pain, then that's just a process. It's no longer a barrier, it's just the way things are, and we can continue to move through. For me, it was a couple days. Now my bike's lined up, I figured it out. Today's ride went a little bit smoother, which was nice because it was super windy, not easy to ride. But no shoulder pain, my body was lined up. I'm already figuring it out in a very short time because a lot of those big things we worry about so much clear up super fast. So next time you're thinking about starting something and you get worried about the initial outcome, don't, and more importantly, don't judge yourself on the outcome. Learn from it, because that's when the things that need to change are going to be the most obvious, but that also means they're the quickest to fix. And sooner rather than later, you're going to have a lot of those things dialed in, and then it's just tweak and getting better.